All right, so welcome back to, hope you enjoyed the commercial break. Just kidding. Anyways, we're back in segment 2. We're gonna be talking about some essential staples to have in the kitchen. And by staples, I mean basic oils and fats and some other cool things that don't cost a lot of money, but are really important to have, I think, from a health perspective. So let's talk about basic understanding of fats, because fats are really misunderstood, and I wanna kind of clarify this. And the reason that fats are important is because when you're using pots and pans, let's say you're making something in a pan, you need to lubricate it to fry up some onions, then you need to know the type of fat to use. And what you want to be looking for are saturated fats when you are cooking. So a saturated fat is any type of fat that is solid at room temperature, more or less. Okay, so coconut oil, right, is not pouring out here, and that's because it's solid at more or less room temperature. Butter, same thing, okay? It's a solid stick of butter. These are saturated fats, and saturated fats are very stable when exposed to heat. Now, understand this, fats and oils are damaged by 3 things: heat, oxygen, and light. Remember that, you may want to write those down. Heat, oxygen, and light will damage fats and oils. The more saturated they are, the less susceptible they are to those 3 things. So a coconut oil is very stable under heat, which means that it doesn't turn rancid. Chemically, it doesn't turn into a problematic molecular structure that will do damage inside your body. Same thing with butter. Although it melts, both of them melt when they're heated, they're stable, which means that they don't change molecularly into dangerous compounds. On the flip side, if we have something like olive oil is known as a monounsaturated fat. Very commonly used in cooking. If you watch any Food Network shows, they're probably going to use olive oil as a base for almost everything when it comes to putting stuff in a pan. And that's a dangerous proposition because, as you can see, it's very liquid, right? So why is it liquid? Well, chemically what happens is, actually, you know what? I can demonstrate this in a very cool way. So your fat chains are put together by these grapefruits, okay? I'm gonna get a couple more grapefruits to demonstrate this. So you have these grapefruits, and each grapefruit represents a carbon atom in the chain. And the more grapefruits you have, the longer the chain is. And between each of these grapefruits, you have a spoon. Okay, so a spoon is a link or a bond. But there are some spots in the chain where you have 2 spoons. And if you have 2 spoons between 2 carbon atoms, that's called a double bond. And the more double bonds you have in that structure, the more liquid it becomes. So olive oil has, it's called a monounsaturated fat because there's 1 double bond in that chain. And that double bond allows it to kink, right? So if you look at the structure of it, it has a bit of a kink to it. It's like bending at the elbow as opposed to just being straight. That kink allows it to be liquid at room temperature. That's pretty much as simple as it is. So the dilemma, though, is that double bond, that one kind of juncture where there's 2 spoons, is also the susceptible point where heat, light, and oxygen can start to damage that. So when you're choosing an olive oil, okay, if you look at this bottle, first and foremost, if you can identify the problem with this, I'll give you like 100 bonus points. Okay, the first thing that should come to your mind here is that this is in a clear plastic bottle. Clear is a problem because it's exposed to light, right? Plastic does not filter out UV radiation. So if this were glass, it would probably be better because the glass actually naturally, as glass does, filters out UV radiation. But because this is plastic, not only do you get the chemicals from the plastic leaching into the olive oil, but because it's clear, if I were to sit this just in front of the window, the light is going to, at some level, damage the quality of this olive oil. So olive oil should be in a dark glass bottle and put away in your pantry, somewhere cool where it's not going to be excessively hot. Obviously, there's tons of different varieties of olive oil, so we won't get into that. But I just want to talk about the quality of it as being very important. And because it's liquid, you don't want to cook with this. Okay, so do not use this when you're baking, cooking, anything that involves high heat. Do not use this. Even low to medium heat on the stove, forget about it. Just use coconut oil and butter. Butter, there is no problem with butter. There's no health issues with butter. For whatever reason, due to some flawed studies back in the 1960s by Ancel Keys, everyone believes that, fat is the devil. Fat is not the devil. Bad fat is the devil. So you want to be avoiding things like, I'll show you an example, like this, canola and olive oil. I don't even know what this is, but this is even worse. It's just a combination of who knows what. Again, in a clear plastic bottle. If it's sitting on a store shelf like this, who knows how long it's been sitting there for. They go through all sorts of processing and bleaching things that turn these oils into dangerous propositions when we consume them. So when we're in the kitchen, we want to be thinking about good quality fats. Okay, so canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil. Those are the types of ones that you find in a lot of packaged foods. You want to remove those completely from your kitchen because they're very high in omega-6 fatty acids, which are inflammatory, and inflammation is the basis of all disease. Okay, all disease at the root has inflammation, so it's all about adding more stuff in that it's anti-inflammatory, that fights inflammation. Okay, so butter, much better than margarine. Butter, sure, it's got some fat, but it's a very short chain fatty acid. It's actually about 6 carbons of fat, and 6 or less means that it's a short chain fatty acid, which allows the body to actually burn it as fuel very easily, which is very cool. So you don't actually store butter that readily as fat. That's why people in France, they eat butter like it's going out of style, yet they don't suffer from the rates of overweight and obesity that we have in North America, and that's in spite of all the butter that they use. Coconut oil and butter are my 2 favorite stable saturated fats for cooking. Olive oil is great for dressings. And finally here, I've got some apple cider vinegar. This, I believe, is the most inexpensive superfood you can get your hands on. If you add a little bit of this into your water, as I will just demonstrate right now, you can take as much as you like or as little as you like. It really depends, whatever tickles your fancy. But I don't even measure it. I just kind of free pour, and based on color, I just say, okay, that's good. And the beautiful thing about apple cider vinegar is that it's very good for your skin. It's very good at breaking down mucus in that whole area. It has a lot of healing properties. It is beneficial for lowering blood sugar after a meal. So if you have apple cider vinegar, for instance, in your salad dressing, it helps to reduce the sugar impact of whatever you're eating. If you have apple cider vinegar in your water, you can have it along with your meal to assist in the digestion process, because it does obviously stimulate gastric juice production in your stomach. And it's just such a great thing. This bottle would cost, I think this might be about $5 or $6. Okay, you can get an entire gallon of apple cider vinegar for $20, and that will last you months easily. So, it's antifungal, anti all sorts of stuff. It's really, really good. So you don't have to go crazy with having 1,000 things in your kitchen, but just having a couple staples is really important. So we've looked at pots and pans, we've looked at our basic knives, we've looked at some really good quality fats, a really cool superfood being apple cider vinegar. And next, what I want to show you in the next segment is how to choose a good juicer and blender, because those are really important, I think, components to a healthy kitchen. So let's get there in just a second. Okay, so welcome back to a really exciting topic, which is talking about juicers and blenders. As you know, I love making juices and smoothies. We'll talk about the difference. We'll talk about which juicer is better than the next, which blender to go for, and I'm going to show you a cool demonstration on the carrots. So first of all, let's talk about juicers. Juicers extract the juice out of fruits and vegetables. And the reason that's important is because plant foods are the best for overall health, no doubt about it. The trouble sometimes is that because plants have so much cellulose, or a plant cell wall, aka fiber, a lot of those nutrients are locked up in there, so we can't get access to all of them all the time. Juicing allows that to happen by unlocking or removing the juice from the fiber. So yes, you don't get the fiber, but you get really absorbable nutrients in juice form. The smoothies are a little bit different because you actually keep the whole food and then it's just all blended. So it's nice to have a balance between juices and smoothies for overall health. So I have two of my juicers here. This one is a Greenstar Twin Gear. I've had this for, I don't know, like 9 years, I think. This is a $600 juicer at the time, but it's lasted me for almost 10 years. Well worth it. This, I believe, is the best for juicing greens. It's a little bit more work than this one here, which is the Omega Vert 350, VRT 350. I think this is the best overall all-around juicer for anyone to have. I actually bought this for my brother and my mom for Christmas last year, and they're like best gifts ever. And I want to show you the difference here. So I'm going to take out my handy chef's knife, and I'm just going to do a little demonstration. And I want to show you the difference between using the Vert 350 or this kind of stand-up juicer, which is a masticating juicer, which means that this is going to do the stuff on itself, on its own. This one you actually have to put a little bit of effort into. So I'll show you the difference here. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to put the carrot down the funnel. Right now, nothing's happening, okay? Which means that I have to take the plunger and physically push that down. Now, that's fine if I'm doing half the carrots, but if I'm making a lot of juice and there's a lot of carrots and celery and maybe some beets and other things, that becomes pretty tiring. It's a decent workout. Now let's look at the Vert 350 and I'll show you the difference here. So the Vert 350 is generally you want to chop things up a little bit smaller, so you kind of do a little bit of pre-prep. And then, this is the cool part. Drop it, and that's it, okay? So notice the fibers coming out. There's no, there is a plunger with this, but you don't have to do anything. So this is kind of like set it and forget it juicing. And eventually there will be some juice that comes out. Now the one thing you might notice actually right off the bat is we use the same size carrot, which is half a carrot, in this one and in this one. And I don't know if you noticed that there's no juice coming out of that, and there's a little tinkle of juice into this. So if we multiply that by, let's say 10, what that's going to mean is that if you take your fiber and you feel it, if you take the pulp, this is still somewhat moist. So there's still some juice in there that you can take and run it back into the juicer. The Greenstar, the Twin Gear, I like because it's probably the best at extracting the most juice. It'll give you the best yield compared to anything else. But again, it's time intense. So a juice you can make in this in 10 minutes might take you 20 minutes in this one. So it's kind of a trade-off. And there's also the centrifugal juicers like the Juiceman juicer, which are really good as well for juicing things like grapefruits and other soft fruits. These type of juicers, not the greatest for juicing soft fruit, and I'll just show you an example here. So I'm gonna just so this is cool because I'm like bringing everything together now. Oh yeah, have a good cutting board. A nice kind of bamboo cutting board is really important. So I'm just gonna take the skin off and we're gonna throw half of the grapefruit into the Omega juicer and then half of it into the Greenstar. And then I'm gonna kind of take it apart. I'm gonna show you something pretty cool. So again, on the level of one grapefruit, it's not gonna make the biggest difference, but when you start juicing, good amount of quantities for 2 or 3 servings, it starts to make a difference. Okay, so we'll start off with this guy. We'll take 2 pieces of grapefruit and we'll throw it down. Just watch the juice coming out of this. Notice that there's no fiber yet. I'm gonna show you where that fiber is going in a second. But you're getting lots of juice, okay? Now we'll turn this guy on. We'll throw grapefruit in. You see the carrot juice, the lingering carrot juice starting to come through now. And some of the grapefruit juice. So we'll turn this one off. And notice how the fiber is kind of getting pushed through here. So this is beautiful because what it does is this kind of rotating thing just kind of squishes everything together and it kind of squeezes the juice out of these foods. All right, so between the two of them, I have a really nice juice. I'm actually gonna taste this. Carrot and grapefruit. I've actually never had that combination. Let's try this one, see if there's a difference. It's about the same. Anyways, you don't have to drink from the the measuring cups like I do. I'm a bit a bit weird like that sometimes. Anyways, so I'm gonna just disconnect this for a second, and I wanna open up the machine. I call this a sniper rifle because it kind of looks like a sniper rifle, if I can even get this open at the moment. Okay. So when you start juicing soft fruit with this guy, what's gonna happen is this. See that? All that gunk build up? That's gonna start to stick on these two rotating blades. And if you do this, like half a grapefruit, one grapefruit, fine. As soon as you start going to like 4 grapefruits, apples, and stuff like that, it just sits like this and clogs everything up. So it becomes a bit of a nuisance. This juicer is the best for green leafy vegetables. So kale, Swiss chard, spinach, anything green leafy, this is the way to go. Everything else is probably best served in the Omega Vert 350. So those are our two juicers. I like this one. It's about 350 bucks. This one's 600 bucks. You know, it's up to you. But the whole idea is that you just want to juice more. It's a great thing for you. So let's move these guys aside and let's talk about the blender to get. And for me, there's blenders and then there's Vitamixes. There's also Blendtex, which are pretty good, but I enjoy the Vitamix because it's so amazing. Very, very high RPM. So it chops everything to dust. Like it literally gets into the cell walls. It breaks up all the fiber. So even if you're making a smoothie that does have the fiber, it chops through all of that so that there's no chunky bits. It's very smooth and velvety, and that allows a lot of the nutrition to be fully exposed so that your body can absorb it. So the Vitamix is the way to go as far as I'm concerned. It's $500, the best $500 that I've spent, arguably. I mean, there's other things. But I bought this, I have two, one for my office, one for the house. The one for the house we bought, again, same time as this, 9 years ago, and it's still with us. Okay, so just think about the long-term investment you're making. If you spend, you know, between the juicer and a blender, $1,000, that lasts you a decade or more, that's a pretty good investment in your health, considering that I'm making juices and smoothies every single day, several times a day, and just absolutely incredible. So blending, again, the benefit of blending is that it allows you to keep the fiber in there. So now you get a whole food, you get the benefit of having everything broken down, so you get more exposure to those nutrients, and you have all the fiber and all that good stuff, which helps remove toxins out of the body, helps keep you regular, and it's really nice to balance juices and smoothies. The one thing I will say about juicing is that you want to avoid juicing a lot of fruit, because if you remove the fiber from the fruit, all you have left is a high amount of sugar. So remember this, apple juice and Coke have the same amount of sugar per serving, okay? The problem there is that your body can only handle so much sugar in the form of fructose, which is the main sugar in fruits, at once. It needs to process that in the liver before it converts it into the usable glucose. I'm not gonna get too technical here, but if you inundate your body with a lot of fructose all at the same time, then you are putting a huge burden on your liver. And that can over time lead to things like fatty liver disease, triglyceride formation, higher uric acid, and all sorts of stuff that can lead to cardiovascular issues. So I'm not saying that juicing fruits is gonna make you unhealthy, but I'm just saying focus on juicing vegetables and add in 1 or 2 fruits for a bit of sweetness. If you're making smoothies, you can throw it all in. Okay, I'd still focus more on the vegetables and add in a couple fruits, but really focus on lowering the amount of sugar you have in your diet. And that's